Hachiman Hikigaya is a student at Sabu High School who was discriminated against in the past because of the dead look in his eyes. He became isolated and friendless, and this gave him a habit of observing people at a distance. This led to his skill in social perception, and he became very good at determining people's true nature. To help him with his isolation, his teacher assigns him to join the school service club, led by service club president Yukino Yukinoshita. Yukino is a sweet person, but she has an icy demeanor. Since she has trouble communicating, other students become envious of her and they all avoid her. Meanwhile, Yukino, who comes from a noble family, believes that she has a responsibility to help other students due to a misplaced sense of honor. Eventually, through adventures in helping other students together, Hachiman and Yukino have become friends. A few days after the high school athletics festival, the students begin to talk excitedly about an upcoming trip to Kyoto. The service club is talking about the trip when suddenly, classmates Hayato Hayama and Kakeru Tobe interrupts. They want help with Kakeru's crush on Hina Abina. Hachiman Hikigaya agrees to help and talks about the risks of asking someone out in a practical and straightforward manner. The next day, fellow service club member Yui Uegahama suggests using the field trip to help with the request, but Hina interrupts. She talks about how their relationships are changing and encourages Hachiman to be more social. Finally, the Sabu High students arrive in Kyoto. Unfortunately, Hachiman and Yui don't make much progress with helping Kakeru. Later, Hachiman updates Yukino Yukinoshita on the request. But when they see their teacher Shizuka Hiratsuka trying to sneak out of the hotel, she asks them to keep it a secret and gives them some comforting words. The first day of the field trip ends with Hachiman walking with Yukino around the hotel. On the second day of the Kyoto trip, Hachiman bumps into Yumiko Miura at a convenience store. He learns that Hina had turned down all her admirers, and Yumiko seems content with how things are in their group. The next day, when the Sabu students arrive in Arashiyama, Hayato opens up to Hachiman in an unusual way. He shares his worries about how Kakeru's confession might affect their friend group's harmony, and reluctantly asks Hachiman to help preserve it. Later that night, as the Sabu students quietly watch Kakeru confess to Hina, Hachiman takes a risk. He intervenes and pretends to confess to Hina, who turns him down, saying she wants to stay single for now. Kakeru thanks Hachiman for sparing him from the embarrassment of rejection, and leaves with Hayato and the others. Even though Hachiman saved their peer group from falling apart, Yukino expresses her disapproval of his actions, and Yui tearfully scolds him for not realizing how his unconventional problem-solving methods can hurt those who care about him. However, the next day, Hina thanks Hachiman for helping maintain the status quo in their peer group. When school resumes, the students of class go back to their usual routine, ignoring what happened during the field trip. However, there's noticeable tension between Hachiman and Yukino in the service club. Beguri Shiromiri and Iroha Ishiki interrupt the club and ask for help with a unique problem. Iroha was nominated as a prank for the student council president election, and they want to help her lose. Hachiman suggests a plan involving a censure motion against Iroha to solve the request, but this idea angers Yukino, who finds this plan dishonorable, and her perspective clashes with Hachiman's unconventional thinking. Later, Yukino asks Shizuka to check on the status of the club contest, and reminds Hachiman about the risks of his methods. After school, Hachiman unexpectedly meets Haruno Yukinoshita and his middle school acquaintances Kaori Orimoto and Chika Nakamachi. During the next service club meeting, Hachiman criticizes Yukino's plan, arguing that it doesn't consider potential future problems if Iroha still gets elected. Yukino, in turn, criticizes Hachiman's methods, leading him to leave the meeting. Iroha later approaches Hachiman and expresses concern about the state of the service club, and he assures her that they will find a solution together. Later, Hayato invites Hachiman to spend some time with Kaori, Chika, and himself on a weekend, but Hachiman initially declines as expected. However, after some pressure from Haruno, he reconsiders. So, one afternoon, the four of them go out together, and the girls from Kaihin High School keep teasing Hachiman throughout the outing. The situation escalates at a local cafe, where Hayato passionately defends Hachiman's character against the girls. Afterward, Yukino expresses her disapproval of being manipulated by Hayato into supporting his argument with the girls, instead of discussing the election. Haruno only makes things worse by observing the whole incident. In the aftermath, Hayato apologizes for creating an uncomfortable situation, explaining that he wanted Hachiman to see the flaws in his self-sacrificial approach. This upsets Hachiman, who argues that the consequences of his choices are his responsibility and should not be a concern for others. The next day, Yukino decides to run in the election against Iroha as a way to solve her request. This decision puts the future of the service club at risk if Yukino wins, since she would not be able to be the president of the service club if she wins the student council election. Yui also decides to enter the election in an attempt to preserve the service club in case Yukino somehow wins. Hachiman feels uneasy about the choices his club members have made, and feels that they have overcomplicated the request. Hachiman decides to open up to his sister, Komashi Hikigaya, about recent events. She offers some comforting words and then asks him to find a way to keep both Yukino and Yui in the service club. The next afternoon, Hachiman meets with Yoshiteru Zamokusa, Saika Totsuka, Saki Kawasaki, and Komashi to brainstorm ideas for dealing with the student council election. They help Hachiman realize that his initial censure motion proposal was a mistake, as it would have damaged the one thing Iroha cares about the most, her self-image. Hachiman then has Saki create a list of potential candidates, and Yoshiteru uses these names to create an anonymous social media campaign. The following day, Hachiman manages to persuade Iroha to accept the presidential position. He uses a combination of social media statistics and clever reverse psychology to highlight the benefits of the role. Later, Hachiman presents the statistics to Yui and Yukino but keeps the fact that he falsified the data a secret. He uses it as a way to convince them that they no longer need to run because Iroha is likely to win. Yui thanks Hachiman, showing some understanding for his methods. In the end, Iroha wins the election uncontested, and in a landslide, and the service club's request is fulfilled. Meanwhile, the service club makes an extra effort to maintain their usual atmosphere after the recent events that have caused trouble with their group. This prompts Hachiman to put on a brave face with his fellow club members, inspired by what he observed in Hayato's group. However, their pretense is disrupted when Iroha approaches the club and asks for their help in planning a joint Christmas event with Kaihin General, the nearby girls' school. Yukino becomes tense, leading Hachiman to decline the request on behalf of the club. Instead, he takes it on as a personal favor to Iroha, aiming to keep up the appearance of normalcy with Yukino. Later that day, Hachiman meets with the Sabu and Kaihin student councils at the local community center to begin organizing the event. While Hachiman struggles to understand the jargon used by the Kaihin members, Iroha blindly accepts their ideas based solely on their official presentation, much to the annoyance of her fellow Sabu High members. The following day, Hachiman attempts to communicate an idea using the Kaihin terminology, but it backfires, leading to misunderstandings and the chaos of organization. Frustrated and making no progress, Kaori approaches Hachiman and mocks him when she discovers his membership in the service club. One afternoon, Yui expresses her concern about the state of the service club. Later, when Iroha doesn't show up for the meeting between the two schools, Hachiman goes looking for her. This leads to an unplanned conversation with Hayato about their reactions to helping others. When Iroha finally arrives, they discover that Tamanawa had assigned some of the work to grade schoolers. Hachiman tries to convince Tamanawa to start narrowing down ideas, but Tamanawa insists that everyone should contribute some aspect to the Christmas event. An unexpected encounter with Saika later makes Hachiman reconsider his preconceived ideals about helping others. During the next meeting, Hachiman realizes that he has essentially become the de facto leader of the Sabu High Council. This prompts him to once again attempt to get Tamanawa to streamline the ideas so that Iroha can better understand what needs to be done. Meanwhile, Hachiman also helps Rumi Tsurumi finish the decorations, and reflects on how his previous methods have negatively affected others. Later, he crosses paths with Yukino. Knowing that he has been assisting Iroha with her request, Yukino explains that he doesn't have to constantly look out for both her and Yui. She offers him a leave of absence from club activities to ease the burden on him. One day, Shizuka notices Hachiman as he's about to head home after his unexpected encounter with Yukino. He shares his concerns about the troubled state of recent events. Shizuka doesn't waste any time and goes straight to the root of his emotional problem. She explains that his efforts to protect Yukino and Yui have actually been the cause of the divide within the service club. She suggests that he take some time to reflect on his feelings and understand what he was truly trying to achieve. The following day, Hachiman takes Shizuka's advice to heart. He approaches Yui and Yukino, admitting the mess his plans had created. Yukino, sticking to her usual defensive nature, declines his request for help. Yui, with tears in her eyes, points out the unfairness of Yukino's reluctance to open up. However, Yukino counters by chastising Yui for also concealing her true feelings. Hachiman then has a moment of realization about what Shizuka meant by not merely voicing one's feelings. He fights back tears as he reveals his genuine desire to understand the emotions of those around him. His uncharacteristic display of vulnerability leads to a clash with Yukino's inability to discern a person's true emotional state, and she runs away to the school rooftop. Hachiman and Yui follow her, and Yui's plea for them to be more open with each other resonates with Yukino. She decides to help Hachiman, marking a turning point in their relationship. Later, Hachiman briefs Yukino and Yui about the upcoming meeting between Sabu High and Kaihin General before they all attend with Iroha. Yukino gets a first-hand look at the chaotic state of the Christmas event preparations. Together, they decide to seek guidance from Shizuka. Shizuka suggests a brainstorming session for Christmas-themed event ideas at the Destiny Land amusement park. Yui invites Hayato, Yumiko, Hina, and Kakeru to join them. The group kicks off the event by taking photos, going on a space-themed ride, and enjoying a panda bear-themed attraction. Hachiman observes Iroha's attempts to flirt with Hayato during the panda ride. The service club takes a break at a gift shop to pick out presents for Komashi. Yui seizes the opportunity to playfully tease Yukino about her feelings for Hachiman. Later on, Hachiman and Yukino accidentally get separated from the others while heading to another ride. Yukino begins to open up to Hachiman about her complex relationship with her sister, Haruno. She shares that she often thinks about the qualities Haruno possesses and why she lacks them, extending this line of thought to include Hachiman. Eventually, they reunite with the rest of the group to watch the fireworks show. Amid the distractions, Hachiman notices Iroha and Hayato. He sees Iroha confess her feelings, but then run away in tears after being rejected. Iroha insists that Hachiman give her a ride home after her rejection by Hayato. During the ride, she reveals that his recent outburst in the service club had pushed her to take action prematurely with her feelings. Some time later, Hachiman arranges a meeting between the student council and the service club. He suggests they strongly advocate for a significant change in the two schools meeting to prevent a disaster at the Christmas event. At the next meeting, the Sabu students put this tactic into action. When Tamanawa rejects their ideas, Hachiman calls them out on their fear of taking responsibility and their inability to handle it, a point further emphasized by Yukino. This prompts the desired response, and they eventually agree on a musical performance and stage play. On the day of the Christmas event, Iroha takes the lead, and the event turns out to be a tremendous success. The members of the service club celebrate the new year a week later. During the celebration, Hachiman advises Yukino to spend time with her family during the season. The following day, Hachiman and Yui go shopping for Yukino's birthday, and coincidentally encounter Haruno and Hayato while waiting for their parents. Haruno then calls Yukino over from home, much to Yukino's annoyance. The strained family dynamics become evident when their mother arrives. Days later, the senior students begin considering their future academic paths, with many leaning toward liberal arts. However, their focus shifts to a rumor regarding Yukino and Hayato. This leads Yumiko to visit the service club, where she tearfully expresses her fear of growing distant from Hayato because he hasn't shared his future plans with their peer group. Hachiman attempts to confront Hayato directly about his choice, but fails. He also tries indirectly through Haruno when she arrives at Sabu High to assist the student council. However, both efforts are unsuccessful. Hachiman decides to use the annual winter event marathon race to his advantage. He provokes Hayato by using the stress of the event to push him toward choosing the sciences. Unexpectedly, this triggers Hayato's inferiority complex towards Hachiman, and he decides to do the opposite of Hachiman's advice. Hayato ultimately wins the marathon and dispels the rumor by thanking Yumiko and Iroha for their support. While Yukino tends to Hachiman's scrapes after the race, they share a moment of romantic tension, discreetly observed by Yui. At the after-party, Hayato apologizes to Yukino for the rumor. Later, Hayato explains to Hachiman that he didn't want to reveal his choice because the influence of his peer group would have taken it out of his hands, undermining his pride in making the decision for his future himself. Hachiman meets with Haruno one day after being summoned by her. He discovers that the Yukino they've all come to know might just be a persona she created. As Valentine's Day approaches, the Sabu students become excited about it. Hina and Saki seek help from the service club in making homemade chocolates, joined by Iroha and Yumiko, who plan to give theirs to Hayato. Since Hayato has decided not to accept chocolates from anyone, Hachiman realizes they need a reason to compel him to accept the gifts. This leads Iroha to involve the student council in organizing a joint cooking class event with Kaihin General. The event turns out to be a great success, bringing everyone closer together. Shizuka expresses her satisfaction with Hachiman's personal growth since expanding his social circle. Later, Yukino and Yui present Hachiman with their chocolates, but Haruno disrupts their moment by suggesting it's all a facade. As the three walk home that night, they unexpectedly encounter Yukino's mother. Yui and Hachiman catch a glimpse of Yukino's struggle for individuality within her family's shadow. This leaves Hachiman with the impression that they all have yet to discover their true selves hidden behind their personas. One day, Haruno intercepts the service club while they're on their way home one afternoon. She criticizes Yukino for not making independent life choices, despite the Yukinoshita family giving her considerable freedom. Yui steps in and suggests that Yukino spend the night at the Yurigahama residence to let things cool down between the Yukinoshita sisters. The next day, while Komashi goes for her Sabu entrance examinations, Yui invites Hachiman and Yukino to Kasai Rinkai Park. They spend the day at the aquarium, bonding over their different personalities while observing various aquatic creatures. The three of them react to the close bond between a pair of penguins, and Yukino subtly alludes to her own sense of detachment. Yui eventually reveals the true reason she invited them out. As the day nears its end, she brings up her initial service club request, taking responsibility for the strained bonds between them, and she suggests they continue pretending to have a blissful status quo. However, Hachiman interjects, proposing that it's better to endure their uncertainties than live a lie. The girls agree to his compromise, and Yukino decides to take Hachiman's request seriously for the three of them to understand each other and their feelings towards each other better to save the service club And this is all for this video. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.